Hello, I've been running and the name Glenda Collins popped into my head. Who is Glenda Collins?
That's me. I'm a singer, vocal coach. I scout. I'm a mother, presently a widow, and I'm a full-time vocal coach every day, 24/7. I think my calling, it seems to be helping people find their voice and most importantly, finding their singing voice. And it doesn't seem to matter the level of proficiency at singing. I seem to have the gift of helping people to sing better. So I've transitioned through a couple years now from full-time performer to presently full-time vocal coach.
So, if someone can't sing, if they don't have their voice, they can come to you and you will help them find it.
If they think they can't sing, because I believe that everyone can and everybody has the ability to express themselves in song. Everybody may not be a Whitney Houston or Pavarotti or Ella Andel or a Marshall Montano, but you can certainly find your voice to express yourself in song. And I think everyone has that ability. So I try as much as possible to work with a person's innate ability, not try to impose a style or fashion them to a style. So I work with people's innate abilities, their talents, and I try to shape that and have them be happy, whatever level they're at. They could be exceptional, or they could just be very simple people wanting to tell simple stories, do not be on a grand stage, but just be able to sing around the house for family and friends, or be brave enough to sing in the church choir.
How did you get to that?
I tell this story that my mother says I came out of the womb singing. The doctors will say she was crying. Yeah, but my mother says I came out of the womb singing. And as a child, I lived between two peaks. And I would stand on my side of the mountain, the hilltop, and sing to the other side. And the road between was my audience. So cars going by, because they were my unintentional first singing for people who didn't know me. But I would sing to the other mountain, and my echo coming back was my companion because I grew up as an only child. So I would sing to the mountain, and then when I got to high school, I ended up in the school choir and under the direction of Michael Steele and Geraldine Connor. And they recognized, I think, my innate talents. And then, as a very young soprano, I sang in the then Trinidad Opera Company, which was under the direction, patronage of Clarita Rosa de Lima. I don't know if anyone remembers that dear lady of Y.D. Lima, and she was a true patron of the arts. So I was under her mentorship for 4 years in the Trinidad Opera Company. And then I moved on to performing with various companies around Trinidad. And then I got taken up by Derek Walcott to sing Tisbia on tour with him for his Nobel laureate. And I'm rushing through my life. And did that for the better part of 4 years. And then went to college after that, got my degree, and then came back to Trinidad and started then I think my career, which was 25 years ago. I sang around the world. I lived in different places at different times, pursuing my passion, which was singing. And I knew I wanted to make it my life. And I knew I didn't have a plan B. I took opportunities wherever I could to go sing. So I was in France a lot, and then the US, of course, and throughout Europe. I even ended up in Budapest at one time at a friend's house doing cabaret type thing at a friend's restaurant. France, of course. And I had a good time in Europe just singing. And yeah, I sing all the time.
When you reflect on your past, what is your fondest memory of being a singer?
It would depend on where I was at, what level I was at. One of my fondest childhood memories was singing for the school, Row Me Over the Tide Boat Man. It was one of the first songs I ever sang. I think I was 6 or 7. And then I got to sing on the Auntie K show, and I thought that, oh my God, which was held, it was a talent show at the Deluxe Cinema, Auntie K. I thought I was so special. And then I got to sing solo at the Vienna Music Festival with my high school choir, Holy Name Convent, under direction again of Michael Steele. And we were the combined choirs of Holy Name Convent and QRC, and I sang solo throughout that. And that for me at the Vienna Music Festival, having a solo part in a big thing, that was a huge thing because we grew up on The Sound of Music with Julie Andrews singing on that stage in Vienna. So to be on that stage singing solo was, and then I think in my adult career life, being taken up by Derek Walcott to sing Tisbia on tour with him. And that was, of course, after working with him. But I got that role. I was doing the final night of a performance in a play that I had produced with my friends. They were the writers of the play, Bernard Hazel and Ricardo Nanton. And I had been producing that leg of the show at the Trinidad Theatre Workshop, which was in the then library, which is now the library, but the old fire station. And Derek Walcott came on the very final night of the performance. And his comment was, of course, he loved the show. He thought it was fabulous. But why did you have that girl miming? And Bernard and Ricardo couldn't think of a part of the show that there was miming. We had recorded music, but everybody was really singing. He said, no, when that girl came out and she was singing that thing, and they said, no, she was actually singing. And he said, she was singing. And he said, and I have to meet her. And he came, he met me backstage, and he said, sing for me. And I said, oh, what do you want me to sing? He said, oh, you were singing there on stage. And if Derek, all right. And he said, and I said, okay. So I sang what I was singing on stage. And he said, okay, I am just a Nobel laureate of blah, 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 blah. And I said, of course I know, sir. And he said, I want you to come down to the theater workshop on Monday, and Albert Laveau will give you a copy of what I want you to come and sing for me. And I had 2 days to prepare the monologue and the aria, Tisbia's aria, and go sing it and do the scene with, I think it was Albert, on the Monday. And that's how I got the role of Tisbia to go on the Nobel Laureate tours for 4 years. First with as Tisbia against Nigel Scott for 2 years, and then another 2 years with Wendell Manwaring as the lead. And it was an incredible experience. So that was, I think, after giving birth, was the highlight of one of the most memorable experiences of my adult career.
Talked about Wendell Manwaring. Reflect on something that you've sung with Wendell.
So, of course, we all know of the Tree Canal and the carnival production that they do every year. And I think for 5 of those productions, I worked with the voices. And I also sang this role called Diva on the show, and she opens with another operatic air. And so I've sung with Wendell at least in 8 of their productions, in many configurations. But I've backed them up. I've jumped in the chorus to do backups many times.
So you're saying someone who has performed internationally has also
Yes.
done backup music.
For Tricanal, yes. I can't say that I've done it for anyone else. So these are also my childhood friends. They're not just comrade. And I've toured with Wendell for 4 years or 5 years. Once as there was a contingent that went from Trinidad to Germany to work at a refugee camp called Hayusam. And it was under the patronage of these German ladies who were very sympathetic to the cause of a group of refugee children who had been in a camp for going on 10 years. And they were more than, some of them were adults, they were over the age, that but they had to report back to this camp every night at a certain time. And they noticed they were depression was high, of course. They weren't part of they weren't being given papers to be a citizen, and they couldn't go back home to their original countries where the Red Cross had gathered up these children and dropped them in whatever country would accept them. So it was people like Minchell, Earl Lovelace, Pam Berry, under the direction of, oh my gosh, he's now deceased, and myself, Cecilia Salazar, Dave Williams, and a group of people were taken from Trinidad to go do a workshop, at the end of which the people in the refugee camp had to be a part of the production to be chorus. So I was given the role by Wendell. Okay, so you have to turn some of these people into singers for our show, the Chicanal show, which is part of so my job, it wasn't a job. My job was, suddenly I was cast in the role of choral director for where I had just gone to sing. So Wendell says, you have to now get a group of people who can back us up in the show and be a part of the chorus. Dave Williams was then in charge of making sure that these people could dance for the show. Cecilia Salazar had to be a director for drama. And it was an incredible experience. Again, another incredible experience of, I thought I was just going to sing, but was used for, yeah, a bigger picture to create something for these kids to help them. I think it was an empowerment scheme. Yeah, it was an amazing trip. Yeah. Earl Lovelace, and I remember we would go to the reading of his plays, and then Minchell, who was just there as the figurehead that he is, and Dave Williams doing the diva from Minchell's, one of his carnage creations in Mass. Stories.
Because I think these stories are very important for our talented young people to see the potential for what they can do. What is the story behind your role in finding singers and dancers for Lion King?
Can I start that one with another story?
Please.
So I had been on the audition road for roles on Broadway at one time, and this was after the tours with Walcott, and I was still fairly young and ready to get back to Broadway. So I did the audition for Lion King and got the callbacks and got the final callback and had to go meet with the agents in at the BAFTA in London. Oh my gosh, I had been performing with, sorry, Carnival Messiah at the West Yorkshire Playhouse in Leeds. And I got a call back, and I had to be in Atlanta for the final callback, but I was in England, in Leeds, and I said to the casting director, there's no way I can leave London to get to the US. The logistics of it was just impossible. So is there somewhere in Europe I can get to? And she said, if you can get to Germany. I said, I can do that. And it took me a week, but I got to Germany, got the gig, came back to London, came back to England, finished up, then had to come back to Trinidad. And I took a look at my young child and I said, okay, this is not going to happen. I'm not leaving my child behind to go run after dreams. That were realities happening, but I couldn't do it. So I called the agent and I said, I'm so sorry, but I can't take up the opportunity. And she said, okay, Glenda, I'll check you back in 2 years. And she did. And they were coming here to audition singers and dancers. And she said, will you be our associate casting agent here? I said, what does that entail? She said, you just have to organize us coming to Trinidad, including accommodation, ground transportation, the place we have to hold the auditions, get people to the auditions, everything, make sure that we eat while we're there. And so that's what I've been doing for, I think, since 2007 till now. And so I organize the auditions, I get people to the auditions, and there's the musical director, the choreographer, and two of the agents for not only Lion King, but everything on Broadway on the West End as well. They're also musical directors and choreographers, playwrights, and musical bigwigs in the right. So they come, the cast here, and the singers and dancers are placed in productions worldwide, from Australia to France to Japan, Spain, Germany, and London. Everywhere else but the Americas, which require different rules for that market. Yeah, so I've been doing that, but I have personally had at least 20 of my students, singing students, cast in roles. And they don't come and cast for chorus, they actually cast for lead roles. So Nala, Simba, Rafiki, Pumbaa, the hyenas, those are the roles they come cast for. And I have presently on the West End, the lead doing Nala was my singer Janique Charles. One of the other ones, of course, you all know Crazy Jeffers was placed all the way out in Japan. And presently, the Simba on the West End, I've worked with a couple of times, Kyle Richards. Everybody knows that young man. He only worked with me briefly, but and the guy before that was another student of mine who is presently on tour with Burna Boy. And I cast one of the youngest Simbas on tour. His name was, oh gosh, Jonathan Bishop. Jonathan Bishop played young Simba in the West End many years ago, and he then went on to Moulin Rouge. He's now in Hamilton, and yeah, so I'm happy to say that there are other avenues for young singers, but it's a hard road, and you have to be really committed, and it's not for the faint of heart.
So, what advice do you have to give to younger, talented singers who think all I can do is sing, but what am I going to do after that? What's your advice to them?
It's incredible. And I can tell you the story of Janique Charles, who she was still in high school when she was cast as Nala. And she actually went into the first touring company in England before she made it onto the West End of the main stage. But was in her A levels. They were doing the casting. She made it to the callback. She made it to the finals. They called her for a role. And the mother says, I don't know if I want her to audition. I said, why has she been coming to me doing singing vocal lessons for the past 5 years, all through high school? She comes here religiously once or twice a week. And this is what we've been working on for an opportunity like this to come along. And she said, well, she's going off to be a doctor. So guess what? She can do this role. And in 1 year, she can probably pay for her fees for 2 to 3 years. And she would have gotten that bug out of her system, maybe, and she can then go on to do her doctorate degree and everything will be fine. So she's not going to miss out on anything. And lo and behold, the girl came, she got the role. And I then had to convince the parents to let her go. It's only going, the contracts are only for 1 year to begin with. Okay, let her have that experience, and she can have her between high school and between taking up her role at college. She can have that lag year. Let her do it. And she's now on to her third production of another production. She's been there for 12 years in London. So
So,
I have to tell young people who want to pursue a role on the stage and it doesn't outside of Trinidad and Tobago, that there are opportunities. And all you have to do is Google Trinidadians on the West End, Trinidadians on Broadway, Trinidadians in any part of the world doing anything musical, and you will find us there, yeah? But it takes commitment and it takes a focus that you have to see yourself in 50 years doing it, yeah, and still loving it. And you can't have a plan B. I never had a plan B.
you never had a plan B because you had an excellent voice.
It helped. It helped. But many things can happen between having an excellent voice and being able to get your opportunities to do what you want to do. You have to really stay focused, because even if you don't get to sing, you can still get to contribute to the thing that you say you love. I still get to contribute to the thing that I love. I get to teach people to sing. Even though I'm not singing anymore as a profession, I still get to teach people to sing. And yeah, and I love that.
So tell us, why aren't you singing anymore?
A few things. I had what is a real critical illness, TB of the larynx. It didn't affect my lungs per se. It wasn't housed in my lungs, it was housed in my larynx. And it weakened both my larynx and my lung capacity. So my lungs became permanently scarred, my larynx were weakened. So my capacity for singing, the music that I love, opera, was not there anymore. I can sing other things, and I do, but then my stage fright took over. The way it manifested itself in my earlier life was I would have throat infections and I would throw up before each performance. That was fine, but unfortunately, the mental part of it became more intense the older I got. So now I'm in my 60s, it's really taken over. And because I haven't been performing that often, it's like this big thing over my head. And I haven't performed in 10 years, it will be 11 years this year. It's something that many people have asked, and I tell them honestly, that's what it is. It's stage fright. And if I were performing as often as I used to, and presently, if I had the partner that I had when I was still doing it and doing other stuff, I think I would. But there's a bright spot to this now. So I have dared myself, now that you asked the question, to do it this year.
What?
And I will be, because enough of you people have been on me. And I think with enough support that I can get to do something. It will be in May. So every year I do produce a show for the voices that I work with in my studio. Come see me next at Cafe Blue on the 4th, the 11th, the 18th, and the 25th. On bass, Russell Durity. But myself, David Boofsman, Elizabeth Waldron, Geneva Dorsey, Kevin Humphrey, we'll be there every Sunday for the month of May.
Thank you ever so much, Glenda. And what would you like our listeners to take away from this conversation?
Oh gosh, I don't feel that I talk enough about how important it is for us to collaborate and for collaborations to happen. My collaboration with Tricanal over the many years, my collaboration with young composers. It's important for singers here to work with young composers, not just on the soca and the calypso tip, but young composers who are composing, they can't find singers. They feel forced to, and some of them really can't sing themselves. So they feel forced to leave their music on the shelf. And they are composing wonderful pieces. Yeah. So you can go to UTT, check out our young composers. They're doing wonderful works.
Thank you ever so much. And while running, the person that popped into my head was Glenda Collins.
Thank you for having me.